Did you know that in America, there are tens of millions of uneducated people, that the education system is on the brink of collapse, and the country's best universities are mired in corruption? I'll tell you how the education system has deteriorated and why many children simply refuse to go to school, considering it a pointless activity at the moment. Some facts. And for you to understand the full extent of the situation, I'll start with the bare facts. Think about it. Education ranks first in expenditures in 41 states in the USA. Learning is expensive, insanely expensive, and the International PISA test, conducted every 3 years, shows that the level of American teenagers lags behind their peers from other developed countries by 15%. In the latest such test, the USA ranked only 38th out of 71 in mathematics and 24th in science. How about that best education in the world? But that's not all. A study by the Educational Testing Service found that American students born in the 2000s significantly lag behind their peers from other countries in educational indicators. Half of them did not reach the minimum literacy level, and in mathematics, the results were even worse. Almost 2/3 did not meet the basic level of other countries. Less than half of American school graduates have reading and math skills at a sufficient level. Studies also show that spending per student has increased by 663% after adjusting for inflation. The number of students from low-income families in public schools exceeded 50% in 2015 for the first time in 50 years. According to other data, 76% of students were not ready for the first year of college. Colleges and universities. But don't think the problem is only with school education. The quality of knowledge in colleges is also declining. Almost half of the students show no significant progress after 2 years of study. Many students spend 50% less time on studying than their predecessors did decades ago. Only 36% of students receive a bachelor's degree in 4 years, and 77% only by the end of 6 years. Interestingly, 10% of college graduates think that Judge Judy from the TV show works in the Supreme Court, and 29% of adult Americans cannot name the vice president. Not bad, right? 75% of young people cannot find Israel on the map of the Middle East, indicating serious problems in the education system. Critics argue that the current system is too focused on standardized tests and does not promote a deep understanding of the material. Political pressure and large sums of money invested in the education industry make changes too complicated. And the last fact that will just shock you. According to federal research, in 2003, every 20th adult American was functionally illiterate. By 2020, the number of such people had reached 34 million, which is 14% of the adult population. Horrifying, isn't it? School. Let me tell you a bit more about how this system is structured. American education is a multi-level structure, starting from preschool and ending with higher education. In this regard, special attention should be paid to school education, as it is there that basic knowledge is laid and the first problems begin. In elementary school, where children study from 5 to 11 years old, the main focus is on arithmetic, reading, and writing. Natural sciences are taught to a minimum extent, although the curriculum also includes physical education, music, and art. The next stage is middle school, where students aged 11 to 14 study English, literature, mathematics, as well as natural and social sciences. Interestingly, natural sciences like chemistry, biology, and physics are combined into one subject. A similar situation exists with social sciences. Civics, history, and geography are taught within one lesson. As you can understand, it is simply impossible to grasp the material with such an approach. High school provides students with much more freedom in choosing subjects, although there are also minimum requirements, such as the need to study mathematics for 3 years and English for 4 years. Individual school districts may introduce additional mandatory subjects, and university requirements also influence student and TS choices. Moreover, it is worth noting that in some states and schools in the USA, physical punishment, spanking with a rod, is still practiced. This contrasts with the situation in Europe, where any attempts at physical or even strict verbal discipline of students can lead to serious legal consequences for the teacher. Freedom of education. Alright, so there's the stick, but where's the carrot, or the famed freedom of education where students have a choice? The approach of to each his own perfectly describes the situation. Each state, school district, even individual schools can set their own rules and programs. This creates significant differences in educational standards. Add to this the freedom of choice in subjects for students, which often leads to opting for easier courses. In adolescence, not everyone is capable of assessing the consequences of such choices, which often leads to inadequate preparation for real life and further education. But that's not the biggest problem yet. The testing system, which has long been a stumbling block in the educational sphere, further exacerbates the situation. Focusing on successful test completion, rather than acquiring deep and comprehensive knowledge, leads students to manipulate information rather than understand and analyze it. As a result, according to Bloomberg, a significant portion of students graduate from school without even the basic knowledge necessary for life in the modern world. Instead of stimulating a desire for knowledge and developing each student's abilities, the system lowers everyone to the minimum possible level. This not only breeds intellectual laziness, but also undermines the nation's competitiveness in the long run. By the way, the situation is similar with driving education, where young drivers are trained for specific tests and a couple of exercises, and that's where all education ends. Hence the high number of accidents. Not to mention that many Americans are not overly concerned about the safety of their cars because of insurance. But what if you encounter such a driver yourself, or get into a car accident in the USA? Where do you turn for help? Where to find a competent lawyer? How to get compensation if you don't even have insurance? The DT America company has helped its clients receive compensation totaling $21 million. Here you will definitely get answers to all your questions. Link in the description. Bribes and Scandals. Even more surprisingly, a grand corruption scandal recently erupted in the USA, affecting admissions to prestigious educational institutions such as Yale, Stanford, and others. Hollywood stars, top executives, and other wealthy individuals paid sums ranging from $15,000 to $75,000 for intermediaries to ensure successful exam results for their children. The U.S. Attorney's Office charged about 50 people from 6 states with participating in a conspiracy involving bribery totaling $25 million. As part of the scheme, exam results were falsified, non-existent achievements were attributed, and exams such as the ACT and SAT were taken by imposters. The prosecution describes this case as a nationwide conspiracy, and numerous arrests have already been made. Among the accused are parents of students, coaches from university sports departments, and exam organizers. The SAT exam, conducted by the College Board Organization since the beginning of the last century, lasts about 4 hours and includes applied mathematics, text analysis, and a language section. And fake results allow admission to almost any university in the country, where the number of places is already limited. As a result, motivated applicants fail, and places are taken by children with fake results. As you understand, this does not benefit the American education system at all. Not to mention that one bribe leads to another, infecting the whole system with corruption. The shock from the revelations was powerful. However, concrete steps to address the root causes have not yet been taken. Now, with the introduction of critical race theory, the educational environment is facing new complexities and challenges. Also have it tough. I would also like to tell you about teachers, because their system is grinding them down too. In the USA, teachers have to carefully conceal their teaching methods from the overarching control of the Ministry of Education. Using the example of the No Child Left Behind Act of 2002, one can see how, instead of genuine student achievements, priority began to be given to their test scores. This led to school administrations demanding that teachers abandon enriching tasks, such as presentations and scientific projects, in favor of monotonous test preparation. Many teachers hide new plans in their classrooms, prop them up against cabinets, trying to work within the old system, realizing the inadequacy of training for just one single test. Ironically, despite such use of official plans, improvements in test results are attributed to the administration's merit. The question of time for teachers' self-improvement is also critical. In the USA, they spend about 28 hours a week on direct teaching, leaving little time for collaborative work and methodological improvement, whereas in Finland and Singapore, significantly less time is spent on this. This reflects a greater burden on American teachers as class sizes grow and support from auxiliary staff decreases. And in 2015, the Every Student Succeeds Act was passed, literally forcing control to ensure that every student passes the test. As a result, the teacher not only does not provide new knowledge, but sometimes even has to assist during the test to ensure that everyone achieves a passing score. System collapse. In 2020, new results of the National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, were published, based on data collected in 2018. The study covered humanities such as history, geography, and law. The results were disheartening. 2/3 of American students cannot even name basic geographic features within their own country. The paid education system contributes 5% to the country's GDP, where averaging the level of education to the lowest level becomes the norm so as not to offend anyone. In such conditions, individuality and a thirst for knowledge are not encouraged. The situation in Oregon is particularly illustrative, where in 2020, during widespread unrest, a law was passed exempting students from taking exams in reading, writing, and mathematics. This decision, aimed at preventing racial discrimination, actually contributes to lowering educational standards. Instead of raising students' knowledge levels, the system adapts to the weakest, thereby depriving everyone of the opportunity to receive a quality education. Currently, 43 million adult Americans suffer from illiteracy, which is a direct result of deficiencies in an education system focused on lowering requirements rather than supporting and developing the intellectual potential of each individual. School violence. Another serious problem affecting the quality of education in the USA is school violence. Every year, the number of incidents involving the use of firearms increases. This violence affects not only students, but also teachers. 30 to 40 years ago, seeing an armed police officer in American schools was rare, but today the presence of 3 to 4 armed officers, security cameras on every corner, and metal detectors has become commonplace. During the academic year from 2017 to 2018, there were about 1 million violent incidents in U.S. schools, underscoring the scale and seriousness of the problem. And that's not even mentioning mass shootings and terrorist attacks, which make children refuse to go to school for years. Nothing personal. Higher education in the USA can indeed be considered a large and thriving business, interested in sales rather than the quality of its services. Consider this. The paid education system contributes 5% to the country's GDP, which amounts to about $1 trillion. The amount of Americans' student loan debt reaches $1.75 trillion. If you look at the evaluation criteria in American university rankings, it becomes clear that the main attention is paid to the volume of funding and the number of foreign students. In such a system, intellectual abilities are valued less than the ability to attract grants and publish articles, which often have limited real-world applications. The decision to cut off state funding dealt a serious blow to the education system, leading to the impoverishment of universities and a decline in the quality of teaching staff, which exacerbates existing problems. Student degradation. And what about the students? Are they eager to learn? The education sigh, STEM, seemingly created to identify and support talents, has turned into a mechanism that exacerbates the gap between the rich and the poor, making the rich even richer. At the same time, scandalous phenomena prevail in student communities: alcoholism, drugs, and even violence. I'm sure you've seen many American comedies that romanticize this lifestyle in college fraternities. In real life, it's sometimes even worse than on the screen. Talented and intelligent students without sufficient finances face social isolation and even contempt. In the past, students earned extra education, but now many are forced to work to fit into the scandalous lifestyle of their wealthy peers. Previously, immigrants sought to get a good education and work on their knowledge, whereas today's generation seems apathetic to labor and success. This is also reflected in the country's political life. Many key positions are held by graduates of several elite universities, which, as I have already mentioned, have been implicated in corruption. It's a vicious circle. This situation has become a vivid example of how education, which was supposed to become an equal step for everyone, has turned into a tool for maintaining elitism and degrading social and professional norms. Employers. Even employers themselves are not thrilled. Times are changing, and now even major technology giants like Google, Apple, and IBM no longer emphasize the presence of a diploma. They value real skills and professional preparation of candidates more. This is confirmed by Trump's innovation, who introduced a certification system focusing on qualifications rather than formal education. So, a person may not have a higher education, but having the appropriate certificate, they can comfortably engage in tasks such as installing sockets or other specialized activities. These changes suggest that the American education system is gradually transforming into a set of preparatory courses aimed at developing specific skills necessary for performing specialized tasks. It's like creating working robots, each honing their craft in a specific niche. It's sad, but if nothing is done for years, it's no wonder everything will spiral into the abyss. And that's all. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. There's a lot of interesting content ahead.